Hello and welcome to this SFCC library video about helpful hints to identify sources online. It may not be a website. We've all had that moment when someone asks you where you learned something. Hey, that's an interesting idea. Where did you hear that? Saw it online. Saw it online? What does that mean? It tells me where you found the source, but it doesn't tell me anything about the source itself. Were you reading an article in a magazine or a journal or a newspaper? Was it a post on social media? Was it some sort of video clip, a documentary? Were you streaming a film? Is it a book? Was it from an encyclopedia? Did you read a government report, an industry white paper? Was it really just a web page? Or could it be something else? Figuring out source types online isn't always easy. What do you mean by sources? Source types can mean different things depending on the context in which it's being used. Sometimes you'll hear your instructor talk about popular and scholarly sources or primary and secondary sources, but that's not what I'm talking about in this video. Right now, I'm referring to sort of the type of publication, for lack of a better definition. It's probably easier if I give you examples. These are examples of some common source types that students often use in their academic work. Books, magazines, newspapers, trade or scholarly journals, government or industry reports, videos, podcasts, blogs. New sources are being created all the time. Think podcasts, Snapchats, even AI responses are a source type of sorts. Why should you care about understanding different types of sources? First, it helps you meet research requirements. If your project requires that you use a book or a scholarly journal article, you need to know what that means to get full points. Second, you can save yourself time by being intentional with where to look for information. For example, if I want to learn how to sign the ASL alphabet, I probably want to watch a video, so I'd just go to YouTube. Or if I needed a book, I would go directly to the library or a bookstore. Saves myself time. Third, it helps when evaluating a source. Some source types have specific characteristics that can help when evaluating a source for credibility. For example, newspaper, magazine, journal articles, they all go through a review process before they're published. Social media posts usually don't. That's something that might be important when I'm evaluating the content. Now, please note, that doesn't mean social media content isn't credible or appropriate for some academic research. Credibility depends on content as well as how you plan on using that information, but that's a whole other video. It helps when citing a source. You need to know the source type to use the correct citation formula. Even citation generators ask you for the source type. Here's the example from Noodle Tools Express Citation Generator. Cite A, select a citation type. That means source type, and they have a lot of options here for you. But figuring out source types online is difficult because many sources are available online, but that doesn't automatically mean that their source type is a website or a web page. So how can you tell? Well, here are some hints to help you identify sources online, or at a minimum, help you determine if something is or isn't considered a web page for its source type. Please note, these hints won't always tell us definitively what the source type is, but they may definitively indicate what the source type isn't. Hint number 1, Google the title. Let's say I had seen something on the Wall Street Journal website. Well, Wall Street Journal sounds like it should be a journal, but let's check. I would Google Wall Street Journal. And sometimes Google has a box on the right side with information that it pulls from Wikipedia about the source. In this instance, it says Wall Street Journal is an American newspaper. Okay, I guess it's not a journal. The source type is newspaper. Hint number 2, look at the URL or the web address. I also like to see if it's a PDF when I look at the URL. I was looking at this website. I looked at the URL and I noticed that it says dbu.edu/blog. Well, looks like this web page is a blog. In this Google search, I noticed a result from the Washington State Institute for Public Policy. It says it's a PDF, which usually indicates that it appeared in some sort of print publication, maybe a report, maybe a book, maybe an article. But since it's a PDF, it does tell me that it's not a web page. The URL indicates that it's a report. I also see that as coming from a government. And when I opened the file and I read the summary, it said it was from a study. So this is making me believe that this is a government report about a study. Hit number 3. Look around the website for clues. Once again, sometimes the clues we get don't tell us definitively what the source type is, but it may indicate what the source type isn't. So what that means is, on the web page, look for an about us, or the who we are, or something else that the web page is telling us that might provide information about its purpose or its work. Let's say I was at the inlander.com. When I scroll to the bottom of the page, I see an About Us section. I click on the who we are, and I start to read. I see that it mentions journalism. A little later, it talks about the Inlander being one of the best read weekly newspapers. It even says that it was named one of the top 10 newspapers that do it right. So in this instance, my source type is newspaper. Other clues on websites that you might look for or you might notice are things like links to archives or issues or contents, a subscribe button. These may indicate that different content is available on this website. It could be that there's a newsletter that they send out. There might be a podcast that you can listen to, or maybe some other formally published work. Remember that blog from earlier? Besides looking at the URL, I can also look above the article title that I happen to be looking at, and there's a trail that indicates that this content is coming from the Patriot Perspectives blog. So once again, it's confirming it's from a blog. Here is another example from the American Theater website. There are many buttons that indicate content on this page is more than a website. There is an archives button. There is a latest issue section or image. They have things you can subscribe to. I can even listen to some content. This is making me think that there are a variety of source types available through this website. So I clicked on listen, and I found this item from Offscript, which describes itself as the official podcast of American Theater. So if I listen to content in this section, I would describe it as coming from a podcast. Now, because college students often use scholarly journal articles, I want to highlight some features that you usually find in scholarly journals. They often have descriptive article titles. They'll provide author credentials very clearly. There will be an abstract, perhaps keywords. There will be formal references, and they often include publication information at the top or the bottom. Here's an example of a descriptive article title: The Future of Higher Education, Identifying Current Educational Problems and Solutions. This is explanatory, not clickbaity. You'll also notice that the authors and their credentials are clearly listed. Below this, you'll see that they provide an abstract for the article, and below the abstract are the keywords. Publication information, like the title of the journal, which in this instance happens to be abbreviated, along with the publication date, the issue and volume numbers, often appear at the top or the header of the article, or might appear at the bottom or the footer of the article. That usually is an indicator that it's a scholarly journal. They'll also provide you lots of references in scholarly journal articles. So by looking at the title, the abstract, the authors, the references, all of this, I would say that this is a scholarly journal. Sometimes the online source you're looking at is in a library database. So this brings me to hint number 4. Library databases have helpful features that can help identify source types. Some databases have icons or categories or filters that can help you figure out the source type. This is an example from the results page in ProQuest Research Library Database. You can see the graduation cap icon is used with the caption Scholarly Journal to tell me that this particular article is coming from a scholarly journal source. On the left-hand side menu, you can also see examples of the icons that this database uses for other source types. You can even narrow your results to one or more of these specific source types. The database itself might tell you what it offers in regards to sources. Databases also often provide details or additional information that will help identify the type of source you're looking at. Like I said, sometimes the name of the whole database tells you the source type. For example, the library database Gale eBooks just has ebooks. In this example from Academic Search Complete, the source type is listed right above the article. So this is a newspaper. Some databases offer additional details about an item when you click on it. In this example from PsycArticles, I can click on the tab for Abstract and Details, and then when I scroll down the page, I can see where it says Document Type, and this indicates it's coming from a journal, a peer-reviewed journal, a journal article. Peer-reviewed journal is often a synonym for scholarly journal. So this tells me that this article would be from a scholarly journal. Now, what if you try those hints and you still aren't sure? If I can't find any of the things mentioned before, I will start to consider that the source type might actually be a web page. Let's say I was looking at stats on NFL.com. I have scrolled around, I've read the About Us, I've checked the URL, I've clicked around the site, and there's different sections that might have some videos and there might be news sections, but this particular stats page that I'm looking at, that I'm hoping to use, doesn't indicate that this is a video or was published elsewhere or it's a magazine. It appears to just be an interactive web page. So in this instance, I would assume it's a web page. So let's recap those hints. 1, Google the title. 2, look at the URL. 3, look for clues on the website. 4, look for library database features. So back where we started. Hey, that's an interesting idea. Where did you hear that? I read it on a blog. I heard it on a podcast. It was from a scholarly journal I read online. Now you've told them not only where they can find the information, but you've also given them some clues as to the source's credibility or relevance. I don't expect you to suddenly be experts at identifying sources online. The librarians still have conversations about sources. So if you need help with this or other research, please contact us.